FFA, what's up, everybody? Good morning. Super excited for today's call because you're going to get to hear from the year-to-date leading agent, KZ, and she closed 2 nice annuities yesterday. So we're going to dive into that and figure out how she's uncovering those. How do you go about talking to people, what the presentation's like, because she's at the point now where she's closing these things on her own too. So big shout out to her. So we're going to jumpstart that. Before we do that though, it's Wednesday. I want to hear from you guys in the WhatsApp chat. Where are you sitting at so far this week? How much AP do you have on the board? Go into the chat and drop it there so we can give you guys a shout out. But without further ado, I'm going to bring on Kaylee. Kaylee, you are live with us. How's it going this morning?
Good morning. It's good. It's going good.
I'm extremely impressed at how organized your office is.
Well, sometimes I have to straighten it up a little for these calls, so it's not always this cute.
I don't know. You've been on the calls a lot. It's always looked nice. So I think you might keep it there. But Kaylee, so shout out to you. 2 annuities closed yesterday. Give everybody an idea, right? Because I think all year, right, you've not really dove too far into annuities, but I feel like the last few weeks you've just been on fire with them. You and Taylor had that huge one that you guys started with, and then now yesterday you found 2 more. And were these 2 just regular leads? Tell everybody about how you went about finding those.
Yeah, so I guess a month or 2 ago, I got some direct mailers like in the overflow. Total, I've gotten about like 43, and I still haven't even gotten to all of them, but I've found great success with selling, just regular life, whole final expense out of them. But I have ran into 4 out of the leads that I've worked for, annuities that I've uncovered, and that's not included the big one that me and Taylor did. That was a church member, but yeah, I mean it's been like you said. This year's my first year that I've wrote an annuity out of the 6 years I've been in insurance, which sounds crazy, but I don't know. It's just I've ran into them. I try to listen to the calls and y'all teaching about them just so I can get more comfortable in talking about them. And I think that's the biggest thing is once you start knowing, you're learning a little bit about the verbiage to use and having that comfort in having that discussion with these clients. They're right in front of our faces. It's just getting to that point of the conversation with these clients.
That's so true. One of my first clients I ever wrote, I helped her and her husband with life insurance. Then I helped her brother with it. I helped the whole family. And like 2 years later, Kaylee, she had called me back because she wanted to add coverage. And I went back over there and I was talking to her because at this point I had learned more about an annuity and kind of how it works. And so I brought up that conversation that I never brought up before. And she said, oh, I actually just took this one out like a year and a half ago. And it was like a really big annuity. And I could have kicked myself because had I just mentioned it back then, I would have been the one that was able to write that thing, So working the direct mail leads, let me pick your brain on that because leads are a hot topic for agents. Some agents love direct mail. Some agents don't like the digital, or it's the other way around. How have you liked your direct mail campaign? And just give everybody some insight. Like, what would you prefer? Would you prefer direct mail or the digital leads?
I mean, I still work both. So, but I mean, these direct mail leads have been very, very good to me. I know, you're probably going to run into some rough batches, but that's with any lead. So, I will say, don't judge a lead just off of one batch, and that's, like I said, with any lead, but I like to work a variety of them. Today I'll be working some digital leads, but it varies. I mean, I just, as long as I have leads, that's what matters. Just, having people to see.
For sure. Yeah, that was always my same approach too. You can't sell a lead that you don't have, right? So you just never know where that big policy is going to come from. So what did you change up in your presentation to start talking about these? When do you go about doing that?
I think I ask more questions. So, I feel like I didn't know what to say, like when bringing up these annuities, because I don't want to just be like, oh, I help with annuities too,
Mhm.
So it's more so when I'm verifying their income, so are you on Social Security, Miss Betty? Okay, great. Now, what did you do before you retired? Okay, you worked at the school, or, you did this, you did that. Were you able to, retire with, a pension plan, or did you have like a 401k there? Okay. And so I'm just asking small questions, at that point. And I'm going to give the gentleman I sat with yesterday, I was going to kind of talk about
Mhm.
how I uncovered his, because I would have never thought this guy had an annuity or any money
Mhm.
for that matter. But number one, don't judge clients based on
Yep.
where they live or what they look like or what they have or don't have.
That's a
Um,
good point, Kaylee. I wanna stop you right there for a second because the biggest annuity I ever wrote was over a half a million it was over a half $500,000. It's actually the first one that I uncovered too, and, this house was just a small farmhouse, like, nothing big, nothing fancy, and guys, if you're not asking these questions because you think, kinda like Kaylee said, you might be judging how they live, you're missing it because it's the people who don't show like they have money that have saved their money their entire life, and those are actually the people that you can help with. So you would be shocked at how many people you're passing up that actually do have these annuities. So keep going, Casey. I just wanna throw that in
yeah,
there.
that's so true though. But yeah, never would have thought this guy yesterday would have had this. So I get in, we're just talking, told him what I was there for. And I'm like, people fill this card out for a few different reasons. Maybe you've already got something in place. You're just looking to maybe get a little bit more, especially with inflation. Or maybe you haven't quite gotten anything established yet and you're needing some help, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, yeah, I've got something. And honestly, I really need to call and figure out if I still even have it. I said, well, that's great. That's no worries. That's what I'm here for. I'll help you call them today. Who is that with? And he said, it's with Mutual. So immediately I'm thinking Mutual of Omaha. I said,
Mhm.
okay, well, before we get them on the phone, just to verify, there are a couple different companies with the word mutual in their name. I want to be sure we're calling the right company, just so we're not wasting any of, your time or my time. So if you will, go ahead and grab your bank statement for me. Let's just verify exactly which name of, which company it is that's taking that money out. And he said, well, I have the policy. I said, oh, okay, that's even better. So he grabs it and it's Mass Mutual. So thank God we didn't call Mutual of Omaha. And so I open it and like the very first thing that catches my eye is 2005. So I'm like, oh, this is 2005. Who knows if this is even active? And then I'm like
Mhm.
further reading and I'm like, oh, this is an annuity. This isn't a life insurance policy. So I'm like, okay, this is actually an annuity. Do you have something separate than this for life insurance? And he's like, I really don't know. I said, well, grab that bank statement. Let's double check. Because if you do have something for life insurance, if I had to guess, it's probably coming out monthly. So he grabs that and he brings me his checking account statement. And this guy's like got 50 some $1,000 in his checking account. And I'm over here like, whoa, was not expecting that. As I've got this annuity to my left and this checking account to my right. And then, sure enough, he had a life insurance policy coming out. So we called to review the Mass Mutual annuity, and then we called to review his life insurance. So after we gather all of that information, the Mass Mutual, it was written in 2005, and it was written as like a 5-year contract.
Mhm.
So it's been out of that surrender term period for 15 years. And he initially put in just under 8,000. And it was just, I looked in the application and it was just from a savings account where it was
Mhm.
transferred. So it wasn't like a 401k or anything. And one big thing that I didn't know about annuities that I've started to learn is you're going to have qualified funds and non qualified funds. So basically, taxed or not taxed. So if somebody just puts in some money from their checking or their savings or cash, that's non-qualified. So technically, he hasn't, had to draw any money off of it, like a required minimum distribution. Whereas someone with a 401k, if they have an annuity and they're 75, if that money came from a 401k, they're receiving a yearly, that required minimum distribution. So annuities can be structured different ways depending on where that money initially came from. So just kind of keep that in mind, everybody. But because I was like, well, is it paying him? Okay, wait, I see it just came from his savings. So now I know that in my brain, it doesn't have to pay him, annually unless he wants it to, right? So anyways, I'm looking at the initial amount that he put into this annuity 20 years ago was a little under $8,000. And when we called, his value was $12,225. And as of right now, the rate that it's growing is 2.25%. And so I took all that information in, and after we hung up, I said, he didn't remember he didn't even know he had this. And I said, if you don't mind me asking, what's your purpose for this? And he said, well, I was just going to leave it behind to my siblings. I don't have any children. And I said, okay. And
What a good brother.
Do what?
I said, what a good brother.
Yeah. Yeah. And I said, well, was your intention for this to grow money over the years? And he said, yeah. And I said, well, considering it's been 20 years, you put in right around 8,000 and it's only up to 12,000. Did you think it was going to perform a little better than that? Like, I'm asking him these intentional questions. Like, I know the answer, right? And he said, yeah, that's barely anything. And I said, it's barely been growing and mainly collecting dust. And he's like, yeah, it has. And I said, has anyone from Mass Mutual been in contact with you to review this? Because these are very important to review, especially after that initial 5-year period, because it's going to grow the most during that period. And then it's pretty much just staying stagnant, moving just a little bit in the past 15 years. And he's like, no, I haven't. And I said, well, I'm so glad that, I met you today because I'm going to be able to help you with this. And so I was like, I wish I would have met you 15 years ago, but we should, be able to get this fixed for you. I work, with annuities every day, run into situations just like, what you're in. And so what I said to him was, I'm going to be able to see if there's a product that can get you a little bit better of a return moving forward, so you can play catch up from the past 15 years and see if you can have that 12,000 grow a little bit more than what it's been at that 2.25. And he's like, that would be great. And then I said, and, I don't mean to be in your business, but is there a certain reason you've got this 50,000 plus over here in your checking account? He was like, no. And I said, well, are your intentions for that to grow as well? Or are you just good with it sitting there stagnant? And he's like, well, I would like for it to grow if I can. And so we kind of went back and forth on, I said, well, you can always add a little bit to this 12,000 to, have that money, perform even better. But still keep a good bit in your checking just for, just be able to access that or whatever. But so it was a lot of moving parts, and but it mainly was, I was asking him important questions of what were his purposes for these, different accounts. And he just had no idea that they were sucking. And I was very comfortable with him talking, and that's the one that I closed on my own. Yes, I texted you. I was like, hey, how quick can you run an illustration for me? It's because I wanted to show him before I had to run to my appointment. And I was like, are you going to be home the rest of the day? I'm going to come back. We're going to get this finalized and I'll get it written up for you. So So yeah, I mean, that was just simply asking all of those questions, but showing him that had he had a good agent or that company had followed up with him, I was like, these are just very important to review because you could be missing out on potential, growth that that you don't necessarily have to.
Yeah.
So so yeah, and I will say, like, for the lady that the 1 o'clock appointment, I met with her 2 weeks ago. Her situation was a little different. I wasn't as comfortable as I was with him. So the verbiage that I used with her, so she didn't have any life insurance. She didn't, I don't think she really valued life insurance because she just said she didn't really have the money for it. But then she showed
Mhm.
me her 50, $60,000 account.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, you don't have the money for it. But she said that she had money set aside. And I feel like for the past 6 years, every time I hear that, I'm like, ugh.
Mhm.
But now, it's like, oh, okay, well, that's amazing. Good job for you for that. Was that from your 401k? Yes, it was. Oh, okay, great. What type of work did you do? Blah, blah, blah. And so she's telling me, she's opening up and telling me details about this 401k. She's like, I really got to get with a financial advisor to see what my options are. And I'm like, well, I'm glad that you mentioned that because I specialize in annuities as well. There again, I wasn't very confident in with her. She kind of was on her P's and Q's on everything. And as you could tell yesterday during our call, so I said, well, I work alongside Ryan. He's our annuity specialist. He does annuities all day, every day. I'm going to get him I'm going to get him in the loop on things and see if this would be a good fit for you to have, this could be an option for you to transfer a portion of that money over, to see, if that's something that you would be comfortable with. And she wanted to get her son involved. And that's, he was there
Mhm.
yesterday. So yeah, that initial interaction was 2 weeks ago, but I used Ryan as the annuity specialist where I was going to take that information to him for him to get an illustration drawn up. And then I set the appointment that day in the house for yesterday. I said, I text Ryan. I said, are you free the 28th at 1 o'clock? Perfect. We got it set. I called her Monday night, confirmed the appointment. And it, just went very smoothly. And for those who've never done one of these before, Ryan gets on, you have your iPad set up. He's sharing his screen. He's going through all the different benefits and details about how this product works and, how it can perform and just all of the, like, how you still have access to your money. Just really sealing the deal on explaining all of that and, making the client comfortable and so giving them that visual that they can see how the account value can grow, what it's going to be 10 years from now. And then there's different options to, like, where it can pay them yearly, on top of the required minimum distribution. So it's just a lot that it needs to be explained to them. But as long as we keep it simple, touch on those important parts. I mean, you're literally just walking through that illustration and showing them all of that. But yeah, I mean, it's like, I know we're going to run into different scenarios, but that situation yesterday, I was very comfortable with him doing that. And then the other lady, she kind of was, I wanted to make sure, I needed a hard close.
Yeah.
So I'm just very grateful for you for that one.
And shout out to you too for how you structured that. Cause and I don't even know if you realize this, Kaylee, but you took every objection you were going to get with her and then solved it before we got into that presentation because you had the biggest thing was you had the son there. And that was huge. Being able to talk to her and her son and you just face to face like this over the illustration, answer any questions. There was never like a pressure, there. The son could ask questions, So you set it up in a way that you could actually close it when you were there. Like a lot of times agents will not do that. They'll be like, hey, well, let's just review it. Then you talk to your son afterwards or whatever. And that always leaves open doors. So you closed all those doors and helped her out. And one thing I think that really helped seal the deal for them and for her son was we talked about how the annuity is good, but then we also talked about how it could be bad. And I noticed when I was talking about that, he kind of related a lot to that. And I think he actually liked that we weren't just saying everything's so good. When we stepped back and we're like, hey, if you guys are planning to do XYZ with your money, you don't want to have it all inside of this. And so in their situation, we were able to do it where we took a portion of it, left a portion not in it so that they could use it when they need it coming up. And then I firmly believe in his head, as soon as they're done with that use, they're going to put more into it. So you just structured it in a way where it's not really, you weren't really selling them something. You were showing them and giving them the solution to the problems they knew they had. Like she needed a financial advisor. She didn't know what to do with it. Money's been sitting there forever. So you kind of solved all of those things. When you tried to review this with her a few weeks ago, Kaylee, did she try to block you? Like, oh, I don't want to go over that. Or was she pretty open with it?
No, she was open with it. She said like just didn't want to do the life insurance. And she's like, I got money set aside from, when I retired. And we just talked about that. I had a really strong connection with them, but like yesterday when I was doing the annuity application, I asked about her tax bracket. She went right to her, like she's very organized. She's on her stuff. So, but she was fine talking about it. She went and got her statements. She allowed me to take pictures of everything. She was very open about all of that stuff and how, she was like, I need to sit. It's been on my list. I need to sit down with a financial advisor to figure out what I can do with this money. So yeah, she was once I said, once we established our relationship, had that connection, she trusted me. And then I gave a little bit of confidence about annuities and how we're able to help with that. And we have an annuity specialist that I work alongside. One of the biggest things that I feel like is a strong, having that strong verbiage is I always say, because I like assuming the sale with just life is one thing, but assuming it with an annuity is another. So I put the pressure on the whole suitability thing, having to go through the company and the company determining if the client is suitable for this product. So that's what I put the pressure on. I don't, there again, it's like finding a solution for their needs. It's not like I'm selling them something. So I say, there's some financial questions I'm going to run through with you. The reason for these is the company wants to know, like, let's say, for example, you got $10,000 to your name and you're wanting to take out a $10,000 annuity. They're not going to allow that because that wouldn't be in your best interest, right? So I'm going to just go through, ask you a few of these questions. We're going to show them that, let's look at an illustration for 20,000 and you're showing them that you have, other assets set aside other than that 20,000. You're bringing in this much a month. This is how much you're paying in your monthly expenses. And what the company will do is determine if, this is a suitable fit for you. They're not going to allow you to invest your money if it's not a good fit. So, like I like to say that because there again, it puts the pressure on, the company, and it's like, there's no way somebody can get approved for this if it's not financially smart. So, so I like to really, I used to be worried about asking them all them questions, but that's just how I say it now. And you want to show them the importance of why you need to ask those questions.
Definitely. So. And there's such a, significant amount of people that are in the same situation than your two clients yesterday, Kayla. You had one guy who's just saved his money, just sitting there, doesn't really know didn't even remember that he had it. Then you have her who she's on top of it. She worked hard her whole life, right? She's got her 401k, but she doesn't know what to do with it. And there's guys, you're serving clients that are in the same, I guess, demographic. And there's so many people that actually need someone to do like Kaylee did. Just sit down and go through it, review it, see what's in their best interest, what's not, because they don't have anybody to go to. Most financial advisement firms are going to have a minimum threshold. And if you don't have above that minimum threshold, they don't even talk to you, you know? And so what happens is a lot of your clients, unless they're sitting on gobs of money, they might have a good nest egg set aside, but they can't really get into a financial advisement firm because they're below the minimum. So then they end up doing things like through their banks or different things where, yes, it's an advisement firm, but they really don't have a person. You know, it's just an account that they got opened up. So it's such a big opportunity with how many people are hitting retirement age and they're not certain about what to do with that money. Can they draw it? Can they not? And like Kaylee, for your one client yesterday, she's at a point where she could foresee next year needing extra income to supplement her Social Security. And we broke it down for her like, hey, if you keep all of this in your 401k and the markets don't do good and you start drawing income out of that, when that hits zero, your money's gone. So what's that going to last you? A couple years, maybe, you know, based off how much was in there. And with the annuity, she can get a guaranteed lifetime income where even if that account never grows at zero, they're still going to continue to pay her. So there's so many ways you guys can structure this, from just preservation of the principal, not losing it, the bonus that they get with it, the income potential, wellness riders for nursing care, long-term care, or just being able to pass it down, you know, to family. So Kaylee was able to structure these two to fit each client's need, you know, in a perfect way. So Kaylee, last question for you, because you've just been on a tear this whole year in AP, annuities, everything you've been doing. What would you say, what's the difference between a top agent and an agent who struggles? And for the agent who struggles, how do they become like you?
It's all mindset. It really is. You know, you can find excuses. You can, you know, blame it on this, blame it on that, but you just have to treat each day. This year I've really focused on, you know, maximizing my time in each day. And if I'm not working from this time to this time, it's just a non-negotiable for me. I have to be putting some type of effort and energy into my business between those business hours each day. So, like a day wasted is not okay for me. But it's, you know, what are you worth? You know, do you value yourself enough to put in the work that you know that you're worth? And it's total mindset shift. So just, if it's the littlest things that you can start changing every day, whether that be you wake up earlier, you get a shower immediately when you get out of that bed, you open up your blinds, you know, whatever it is to get your day going. I've been through a struggle, you know, we've all been through struggles, and my biggest struggle was getting up and going. So make an appointment first thing in the morning, get you out of that house, get you to where you need to be working. But it's all mindset, and it's the smallest little things. Tune in with your coaches, like let them help, you know, hold you accountable. Hey, I'm working here today. Share your location with them if you have to. But it's really mindset. You got to get that mindset there and just be pushing towards, you know, your goals and break them down. I'm a big numbers nerd, so I stay, you know, focused on the numbers.
Awesome tip. Guys, take that tip from Kaylee and run with it today. Kaylee, appreciate you for jumping on here, and super proud of you for the whole year you're having, and especially your day yesterday, locking down those two was big. So big shout out to you. Appreciate you for jumping on here.